Get started. Respect everybody's time today. We know some other people may be joining us as we get going, but we'll also make this available for replay in case anybody comes after the start. They can go back and listen to the full episode. Make sure I've got us all set up in here. I think we're recording. So excited to have everybody here with us today. I'm your host, Jennifer Hensley with Playmaker Coaching and Consulting, and excited to have Noah Milmont featured with us today to share a little bit about his experience. And as we talk about the marketing triple threat of how to amplify your reach, use creative collateral, and master your brand. So a couple weeks ago, if you missed it, we talked with Nico about his experience, and he's going to be attending Fast Track this summer, and excited to have Noah with us as he was a Fast Track participant last summer. And then coming up, we will, in a couple more weeks, we'll have Misty P-Tech with us, who's a wealth management advisor, fee-based planning, to talk about her journey and some of the things she's done. So whatever stage you're at in your career, you should be able to walk away from today's conversation with something practical that you can implement immediately, as well as some things that we hope plant some seeds for how you can continue to grow and have a bigger impact and spend more time with more ideal clients, stay on offense, and create more raving fans in your business. I've worked with NM Advisors for over 20 years now, and excited to bring you some of the best ideas from some of our rising stars out there and what they're doing that you can apply to your business. So before we get into our topic in 10, Noah, why don't you kick us off and just tell us a little bit more about your practice and who your ideal client is and what that looks like?
Yeah, totally. Thanks so much for having me, Jen. My name's Noah Milmont. I'm located here in Douglas, Wyoming. I started my practice about 7 years ago as an intern and was blessed with a lot of success within that space for 2 years. And then I flipped to full-time, and I'm coming up on my fifth full-time year here in August, I guess would be the date officially. Primarily, I work with families whose parents are in the demographic between 30 and 50 years old, established. Kids are maybe not all in the world yet, but most of them are going to junior high, high school, things like that. And I also do a little bit work with younger families who are just starting out, and of course, with our pre-retirement market, people in their 50s. And it's been a great home for me. It's where I've kind of built our practice. And as we've moved over time, from starting and having an office in Laramie and then moving here to Douglas, Wyoming, things have been great. So
yeah. And I think that's, interesting. A lot of people don't, are in a network office where you've been building a lot of this kind of a little bit more on your own, being in a little more remote place. And certainly some of our conversation too about finding your own path of not just wanting to use the connections maybe that you had coming into this business, but how do you really establish yourself and your own credibility in the conversations we've had. And it sounds like it's been a great year. You were just telling me before we went live that it looks like you might take the Mountaintop Award from your Fast Track group. So we know it's not over yet, but that's exciting news. So it sounds like it's been a great year, and looking forward to hearing a little bit more about some of the things that stood out to you in terms of how marketing has supported your journey. So tell us a little bit more about that as we get into our conversation of how do you see marketing impacting your growth, and especially the significant growth you've had in the last couple of years?
yeah, well, I think, as we've worked together, Jen, it's been really key for me in the sense of figuring out my value proposition and what makes me as an advisor in my practice unique. I think, as you're starting out in the career, especially, it's just kind of run, 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 and you just try to do the things that everyone tells you need to do. But as you get into your third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7+ years, you really have to hone in on what makes you different. And I think as we work together, we were able to really narrow down my value proposition, not necessarily to be like super competitive in the market, but make it so that in our come to market strategy, I'm very appealing, and my online presence is very appealing to the type of people that I want to work with at the end of the day. And with kind of the market research that you helped me do and getting feedback from clients, I think was really critical in that of developing our core values of family, faith, integrity, wisdom, and just has made it easier and more direct to come to market and help people that want someone like me to help them. And that way also, as I grow and scale the business, I know what I'm looking for more, so that I'm not spinning my wheels on, maybe people who aren't just the right fit for me. And that's totally okay. I don't expect me to be the right fit for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I like to use the analogy of thinking about a magnet, and to attract, it also has to repel some people and being okay with that. And so often one of the mistakes I think that sometimes new advisors make is we try to be everything for all people and we go super broad, and then nobody can really envision like who we can really help and where we can have the biggest impact, versus sometimes going deeper into what really is our own story and who we can have the greatest impact on. And I know, even home office, often we were just talking about like uses your website and some of the things that you've done as an example of being able to make that more clear for your audience of how you can help them and that you are the right choice for them. So let's talk a little bit more about some of this journey and what you've learned as part of this in terms of being able to separate yourself. What some of the key takeaways and things that you've seen as you've progressed and tried different things, because we know it didn't all happen overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very key when we're talking about that. And what you helped highlight for me was just figuring out what I'm already doing. I think whenever we talk about marketing, it's kind of daunting from an advisor perspective, because we think we're going to have to come up with all this new content and like reinvent the wheel and do all of these things. As we work together, it was very easy and clear with your help of point out the things that kind of make me unique, like the parable of the wise man and the foolish man that we talked about, that I've been using for years as a story to educate my clients about financial planning. But I didn't even think of that as like a unique Noah planning tool, right? That's not a unique thing, but it actually really is a unique thing that really resounds with a lot of my clients. And as I do reviews with clients year over year, I'm able to go back to that and say, hey, this is the foundation part of the plan. This is the house part of the plan. And that resounds with them. So yeah, this custom content that you helped me create right here,
Yeah. And like you said, I
speaks
mean,
to
we
that.
didn't really necessarily create it so much as like we just took what you told us. And I think that's a great point of sometimes being able to figure out what you're already doing that's maybe different or special, because sometimes we only know what we know, right? We only know that like this is what I do. Doesn't everybody do it this way? But when you have a conversation with somebody else, like me, that's worked with hundreds of advisors across the system, sometimes you can pull out those pieces like, no, that sounds a little different. That's unique. That sounds fresh. That sounds something different than just, hey, we help you live your life, or we give you peace of mind. How do we make it more specific and bring attention to that? And your website is definitely still one that I love to showcase myself to for other people, because I think it came together so nice with some of the visual elements of it as well that resonate. So let's talk a little bit about some of the collateral, because we've customized your website, in terms of some of that messaging. But you've done some other things like a newsletter. We'll showcase that as
Mhm.
well. Why did you feel like it was really important to go beyond just what you had from the home office and create your own custom collateral?
That's a great question, Jen. And I think the biggest reason is that we took that step to do that was to make um, me feel different and my practice feel different from everyone else. I think it's very easy to kind of lack confidence as an advisor when you feel like you're in a cookie cutter mold, which is ultimately, I think the home office does a great job. And as they've updated the website, it's gotten better. But at the end of the day, prior to us working together, I wasn't confident that if someone looked me up online, they would really see any of the unique traits or skills that I bring to the table. But at the end of the day, my whole goal is, as I have realized and worked more together, I think I have a gift that I can help people take action to better their lives. But if people aren't drawn to me, or the right type of people aren't drawn to me, then that won't happen. But with the generic presence that NM already has, um, it doesn't really do that. But now, as we've curated these things, made it different, I think people come to my website now and look at it, and there's no question in their mind that we're an established practice that's been around a good while now at this point and can help them.
Yeah, one of the
Because
things I love is that, sometimes you're controlling more of the narrative, right? You're putting out the message that you want people to see and you think will resonate with them. And sometimes taking those objections off the table. I know there was another advisor we work with too that had super baby face, and it's like, hey, everybody's going to sit there and wonder, like, are you really competent? Can I trust you? You look like
Yeah.
you're 12. But being able to address that with testimonials, with content that talks about
What?
expertise, really can make a difference. I think we're getting a little bit of background noise. If somebody can put themselves on mute, that would
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
I'm just going to mute them there. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the newsletter as well. I want to showcase that as well. Tell us a little bit more, the people that are listening, about how you use this, because sometimes people be like, hey, we know we got CRM engaged, we got email newsletters, why create our own? Is it something that you physically gave to people or sent out? Kind of how did that fit into the mix for you?
yeah, so after we got together, me and you did a lot more customized work than I think you do kind of with your average first person that you're working with. But the whole goal of this was kind of a reestablish, come back to market post COVID and saying, hey, things have been quiet for everyone. Everyone's been locked in their houses, but we're still around. Here's our team. Here's what everything's looking like now. But I think the real key thing that the newsletter does and will continue to do as we continue to do new ones throughout the years is keep people updated on the practice and also on, me and my family and what's going on with us in our world. Because so often, and maybe I'm different from other advisors, I don't spend hardly any time at all in any meeting talking about myself or what's going on, unless a client specifically asked me and said, hey, how's Zeke doing? How's life? How's Douglas? But vast majority of clients kind of are busy and in their own world, which is totally fine. But I think this newsletter helps convey and will continue to convey what's going on in life, because at the end of the day, our clients do care about us too. They just are busy and they really come to us as a knowledge base to get what they need and then go about their lives. So I think this helps on the connectivity standpoint, and not necessarily like the website driving people through the door on a crazy high level, but I think it continues to help with referability, which is key at this point in
And
my
I think
career.
you emailed it out to your client base, right? That's
Yeah,
how we ended up distributing this and everything. So we created it, and you emailed it out, got it approved, obviously. So it went through compliance, but it has a little bit more your feel, certainly some of the consistent images and messaging as the website, but then that more, like you said, more relevant in the moment. Hey, here's what's been going on that you can connect on, and reiterating some key points like your value proposition, your testimonials, who they could introduce you to. That I'm always a big believer that we have to tell people things many times, right? And because they're not going to remember it, or every time you hear it, you're going to hear it with different ears based off of what's going on in your own life. So I think this can be a great tool. Certainly, it's not something that you have to do out of the gates, but as you're getting to that further along in your journey, like Noah talked about, how this might fit in to your practice to start to more represent you and connect in a deeper way with the people that you're working with. So certainly we know when you're tackling these things, people have concerns about time and money and navigating compliance and everything. What have been some of the challenges or the mindset shifts maybe that you've had to make as you've thought about marketing and how that fits in with your practice?
I think the biggest thing, as all of us business owners do, is we always evaluate our bottom line at the end of the day. And up until this point, marketing has always seemed like a expense that didn't bring a lot of value back. Like I wasn't seeing that, especially, living in a town of 6,000 people. My go-to-market strategy has been and probably always will be a word of mouth strategy. That being said, referability is key. So the mindset shift is really looking at as a long-term investment, not necessarily a short-term, hey, I spend money on this, newsletter or getting an overhaul of my online presence. Think, oh, okay, well, I I can't track or really see how that has generated revenue for me, but it is, and it will over the long run. And I think that's the biggest mind shift that I had
Mm.
to do, because
Yeah.
if people don't love me as their advisor, um, or know me, they're not going to love me, right? So that's kind of
Yeah.
hard.
We always talk about that know, like, and trust, that you
Mhm.
have to have all of them, that people want to hopefully then set more appointments, and maybe we can see some of that start to shift. But it's really that 1 + 1 = 3 too, of like, hey, these all work together, and trying to evaluate them individually. And like you said, like, be like, what's my return and how quickly am I going to see that? That might be hard with some of the things when it comes to your branding. Certainly there's other marketing efforts that might be a little bit more tangible to be able to see those. But I like this thing I heard from somebody you made me think of, and he says it's return on relationships. So shifting it from return on investment to really how do we start to drive return on relationships by thinking more longer term, like you are now, about how this all works together to create more of those advocates that are out there doing things that we might not see on a day-to-day basis. But these are all planting the seeds and nurturing those relationships so they're becoming advocates for you. So one of the things we want to do, and then we'll open it up for questions. I think we still have a couple of people with us. If they want to ask some questions, we'll open it up there. But before we go into that, is we want to always give our audience a try it at work tip. Something very concrete, tangible, something that you can do within the next week or so. If they're saying, hey, I want to work on, creating more collateral or elevating my brand, what would you recommend as something that they could do to get started in this space or take it up to that next step?
Absolutely. Number one, call Jen and potentially work with Jen if you haven't already. Number two, that's a little bit more intrinsic and focused on yourself, is just sit down and take a time to really figure out what those core unique values are
Mhm.
for yourself, or those unique things that you're already doing that are unique to you. On a national network and district office level, there are a lot of great values that are espoused by NM. But they may not speak to your unique value proposition. So if you need help at the end of the day to figure out what those values you have are that clients enjoy, you can always ask some clients, ask some of your great clients, and do some interviews to figure that out. But narrowing that down really helps you feel confident. And that's a very easy thing that
Mm.
doesn't really cost any money at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, a great exercise. And yeah, sometimes we're afraid to reach out to our clients, but they appreciate being asked for their feedback and to share their experience. And most of, I mean, they love you because otherwise they probably wouldn't be working with you in the way that they are and everything. So they're usually very happy to do that. And certainly one of the things I see across the board is that it gives advisors, going back to what you said at the beginning, so much more confidence and clarity. Or when you're having that hard day, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, having that hard day, knowing that you can go back to that like, hey, these are what your clients talked about and the impact you're having of continuing to show up and help more people. So I think that's a great advice that anybody can get started with, is just kind of thinking about, if you were a client and going through that process, yeah, what is it that you say that's a little bit different? What is it that you do that's you? And how can we showcase more of who you are? So we want to open it up to Q&A. If anybody has some questions that's on the line, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll ask it that way as well. One of the most common questions I think, Noah, that I get in this is, okay, how much time and how much dollars did it really take? Can you talk a little bit more about what that time and investment required on your end to take some of these efforts and go beyond just what home office gave you?
Yeah, I feel like, honestly, don't remember the exact dollar figure, which obviously means it probably was a good number at the end of the day. I don't feel any pain around that. Ultimately, it came down to a few different conversations between me and you, where you kind of interview styled me a little bit. I provided some content. Um, but yeah, I really feel like it wasn't that big of a time investment. The biggest thing I had to do on my end, because we did do some client interviews, was curate a list of those clients that I wanted you to reach out to and interview, and get the approval slash giving them the heads up of, hey, um, I'd like you to chat with Jen. We're trying to get some feedback from some of our best clients and how we can improve as a practice. But even that, I don't feel like it was a huge time investment at the end of the day.
Sometimes I hear people say it's the stewing's worse than the doing, that we think it's going to be all this effort, but we really do try to make it as easy as possible. Love reaching out to clients on behalf of my clients. If that's something you're not comfortable with too, because they always have great things to say. And yeah, I realize for a lot of advisors, having that conversation just feels a little bit easier than trying to put pen to paper sometimes. But there are some great tools out there for you as well. Feel free. I know from a business perspective with clients, you can't use some of the AI tools, but if you're just out there as an individual being like, hey, I want to, brainstorm or help me wordsmith something, those tools can be really helpful too, to help think through, is there a different way I can say this? So, don't have to come to us for everything, but if we can help you, certainly always open to having conversations. We have our Champions Club brand boot camp that'll be starting this June, where we'll help advisors, typically under 5, write all their content for them. Or if you want to do more of the one-on-one, I think, which is what Noah and I had the chance to do, where we could go a little bit more in depth, we can always have a conversation, do that at any time to help you. So a couple other things. I don't see any additional questions in the chat right now. But you can use my QR code too if you want to just book a 30-minute conversation to learn a little bit more or talk about what challenges are on your mind, what you're thinking about in the marketing space. Always happy to do that complimentary, to see if we can help you take some things from today's conversation and take that next step forward in your business. So Noah, as we wrap things up today, we always want to show our appreciation for you giving back your time and expertise, and would like to be able to contribute to a cause that you're passionate about. Tell us a little bit about an organization that we can help support that is meaningful to you.
That is a great question. Honestly, the Toys for Tots organization, I think is always doing really great work, helping out in the community, helping, families at the end of the day that need help in that kind of space to provide a better lifestyle for their kids. So yeah, I think that's a great one.
Yeah.
And Alex Lemonade Stand always makes me cry whenever I'm at an annual meeting. So
Well, I
I
know you,
agree with that as well.
you have a young kiddo, so I know kids and families, like we talked about, is something near and dear to you and stuff. So happy to be able to support them. I know that is always something that we're passionate about as well. So remember the resources for this week and Noah's Try It at Work tip to, reflect back on your own language, your own process. What's unique? What is your story that you can start to showcase and own, that it's a separator for you. And whether you're an under 5-year advisor like Nico that presented a couple weeks ago, you're, at that fast track level like Noah, or, you're thinking about fee-based planning and how can you use that to really separate yourself and go to the next step. Encourage you to take our score assessment that's available on our website that helps you kind of figure out what that next step is for you, and to schedule that time to have a conversation and just talk a little bit further about your particular needs. We'll send out the recording for everybody that had registered for today. So be a lookout for that. And then our next webinar is on Thursday, April 25th with Misty Petek, who's a wealth management advisor, fee-based planner out of the Nashville office. So make sure you have that on your calendar so you can hear from her as well. She's definitely a technical expert, loves nerding out, but going super deep on her relationships with people as well. So I think you'll get some great insights from some of the things she's doing, especially as she approaches 10 years in business and is focused on making a big splash and celebration this year with her clients as well. And then the other thing I'd encourage you to put on your calendar is April 22nd, that Monday at 2:00. We have our MVP workshop. We encourage you, if you haven't checked it out, you can come for a month and check it out for free. This month, we are going to be working on digital presence. So if you want to take some of the things like you saw with Noah's website or some of the other examples and say, hey, how do I start to do some of this on my website or on my LinkedIn? We're going to be working through that during the session together to get some of that done. So I encourage you to come and we'll actually walk away with some things implemented for you. So one final thought for you today as we wrap up is, now is the time to go boldly towards your goals. We're approaching the end of awards year. Now's the time to keep moving forward. Now's the time to be the change that you really want to see. And now is go time. You know, if you've heard me, my word for the year is go. So let's go out there and let's be great, and wish you all a great next steps in your business. And we're always here to help you however we can. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Noah. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen.